Good afternoon. It's the final project time. I'm now at the point where I'm pretty much done with all I can do with building retro computers with a Raspberry Pi. But I thought what a good way to go out would be, in this last project, is if I combine elements from every other project and put them together. And just see if I can literally combine everything into one. And I thought, what better way to go out on than with the console that I loved the most. Well, the Amiga's not a console, the Amiga's a computer. But the one I really, really loved the most, the PS1. And I still have my PS1, and it still works. You don't need to turn it upside down. You don't need to do anything else with it. Like, I love this thing so much. I got it when I was working at Electronics Boutique, which is now Game. And I played hundreds of games in it, mostly black discs from work, but then I got a load of box games as well. And I even had one of those, because my one was the one with a parallel port on the back. You could, it could also play VCDs with a VCD player. So I went down to Chinatown and got a load of bootleg VCDs. I remember having Blade and Rush Hour on VCD. And yeah, that was cool, watching those. If you don't know what VCD is, it's a CD with a video on it. Predates DVD and is basically used for Chinese bootlegs. So you have to go down to Chinatown and pick them up. Yeah, I love this thing so much. Anyway, I dug it out, and I dug out some of the games for it. I didn't have a controller for it, and the memory cards are long since dead. But I thought, I can build one of those, and I can build it better. And I now am ready to do that. Check it out. So here is my original machine and some of the things to go with it. So as you can see, it's a bit yellow. This is the fire retardant plastic that they used to use back then. So this is a model from like 96, maybe 97. So I mean, you can see the bottom, still a different color, and the memory card's a lot different color because it's made out of, it hasn't got that plastic on it. But like I say, still works. What's inside? Incredible Crisis. Yeah, that was the last thing I was playing on it. So I'm not going to retrobrite it. I'm not going to do anything with that. Like I say, it still works fine. Recently, at the end of last year, Sony, in their infinite wisdom, decided to commemorate this fantastic machine with one of the most lazy and ill-conceived mini solid-state consoles ever. It was ridiculous and it was rubbish. And when it came out, it cost £90, £95, something like that. Close to £100. And I thought, I bet I can do one of those better for the same price. I really do think I can. So I've gone out and I've bought basically components to build one of these for roughly the same price. Starting with, like I said, the controller was dead. So I picked up this. This has to be 21, 22 years old. I picked it up on eBay for a tenner, and this thing is clean. Like, whoever had this before, if I remembered your eBay name, I'd shout you out, but this thing is like new, and it's got to be 22 years old. Like, this thing is original. This thing is legit. So, got one of these. Now, it's an original PlayStation 1 DualShock. So, like I say, that was a tenner. And what I'm going to do is transplant the insides of this cheap Chinese USB one into that one. Now, all I need is the PCB inside. All of the other components, the sticks, the buttons, everything else, is not going to be this cheapy plastic with these cheapy buttons. All I need is the contact PCB inside. So I'm going to transplant that over there, and the cable isn't going to be the same cable. I'm going to change the cable as well to a grey one. The cable itself, I'm going to use from the next thing I've bought, which is, in fact, I'm just going to set this down here so I can use two hands. One of these. So, I managed to find one of these. I was looking for used ones for a while, and they were used for about 45. I mean, some people are charging like 90 quid for these. Don't pay 90 quid for a used one of these. I got this new, and it is new because it is still sealed. All right, £36. Now, let me just focus up. There you go. So I'm not even going to plug this thing in. Like, I'm not going to plug it in. I'm literally taking it out the box, undoing it, and then throwing the insides away. The cable I'm going to use, so that cable I'm going to transplant onto this. So it's a USB, and it has the mini, whatever this thing's called, socket, memory card shaped socket, right? Now I haven't seen inside this thing. I haven't looked up. Unfortunately, I should have really, but this deal came along and I bought it because I was like, well, it's cheap now. It's only going to get cheaper. Let's just go for it. So I've got one of these. I didn't look inside. So I'm hoping that the USB ports at the front are on a separate PCB and the unit itself is maybe like tucked back here somewhere. If it's not, I can deal with it. It's not a problem. Obviously inside I'm going to put a Raspberry Pi. So where did I put all my parts? All right, yeah. So I've got a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, like nothing that I haven't used before a million times over. From here on out though, it's going to get a little bit different. So the inside of that, gone. In here, gonna mount that inside. The buttons on the outside, I've actually got some micro switches. So I realised that the PCB inside is going to be attached to these buttons and they're probably just going to click down on them. What I'm going to do is, first things first, I'm going to put in a 128 gig Evo Plus, which is the Type 3 Class 10. Super fast and double the capacity. So I can fit on, I don't know, maybe a couple of hundred PlayStation discs. So, I mean, the only thing that's going to be on this is PS1. Like, because I've got my other Raspberry, I've got so many other Raspberry Pis for other consoles. This one is just PS1. So, that's that. Heatsinks, standard copper heatsinks, nothing special there. This is where it starts to get different though. So my other micro switches are momentary switches, but these ones are like those two-stage ones, so on-off ones. So you go click once for on, click once for again for off. They sort of go down and up. I've used these before, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to link this one to the reset button, which is here. So on the old machines, it is here. So that reset button. And I'm going to connect that to, if I can find it, oh, I don't have it to hand, to a fan. So that fan is going to, I'm hopefully going to mount it either here or here and cut holes in the, because this is just all for decoration, there's no actual holes here, but I might cut the back of these little slits out and have the fan blowing out. So I can have an on-off button for the fan here and then just link that to the 5-volt rail, so that's not a problem. The on and off button, I can do that with micro switches, so my standard little micro switches that I've used for all my other Raspberry Pis, I'm just going to link underneath there, so when you push down that button on here, which is this one, click, Pi comes on, hold it again, Pi goes off, standard. And the button here, which would open the thing, I think on this one it's for swapping disks, but what I'm going to do is link that to the GPIO and then I can have any programmable function mapped to that button. So for example, if I did want to swap disks for like Final Fantasy, Metal Gear, stuff like that, press that and it'll pop open like, I don't know, like the load disk image, whatever. Oh, here's the fan. So I'm just going to mount this tiny little 5-volt fan so it blows out the side, so it won't get hot in there. That way I don't have to cut vent holes in it. I can just vent it out, maybe drill a few holes in the bottom so the air's coming in through the bottom, and then that will blow through the RAM chip and then out the side. And lastly, I've got one of these. Now I realise that the HDMI is on the back, and if that board has to be mounted in a certain angle or a certain way, I can mount the HDMI anywhere I want. I can cut that out and then mount that in the socket that's going to be left open from that. If this uses USB-C, I'm going to switch it to a micro USB, which is roughly the same hole anyway. So yeah, so that'll be that. So all in all, I pretty much have everything here that I am going to need to build. The last thing I'm going to build is one of these out of Perspex, and that has to do with the SD card. But I'll tell you more about that when I've done it. But yeah, I'm building a memory card for this here. All right, cool. Peace.